We've discussed so much in this series, and now we have, I thought legal was more controversial, but I think we have a very controversial representative. You're representing the industry, which is very tough, the developer.
Yes.
And I think you're hot at the moment because everybody's buying properties from developers. So this is Maximus De Souza. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
You're a business developer and you work for a property developer. You've been in this industry for how long?
We're over 23 years in the industry as a corporate, as a company.
And as yourself?
I'm particularly 5 years now.
Okay.
Yes.
How has it been?
Look, it's been very rewarding, very eye-opening.
Yeah.
Because definitely I think business development, property development is really something that we really need in terms of being able to catch up with the housing backlog and being able to deliver the hope to people that they can have a home. It's also good enterprise, if I could put it that way.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
And I'll leave it at that.
I'm seeing the enterprising side is more of what you guys focus on than the people, which is what we want to discuss. We represent the people.
Yes.
No, and I think before we get into it, what are you identify a piece of land. What are the steps that you take to get to what you call the end, which I assume is a finished product? And can you explain what a finished product is?
Okay. So typically, when we get into acquire a piece of land, there'll be an ultimate objective. And you will have two distinct products that we can talk about. You could look to develop a set of cluster units. So ultimately, the product going to market will be a complete cluster unit.
Yeah.
The second and most common product we have that the market is coming to developers for are service stands. Mm-hmm. So when a customer comes in, they typically saying, I want to buy this piece of land, it's 400 square meters, and will have a title deed at the end of the process. So that's the product the customer is coming to get. A piece of service land that all its compliances have been delivered, and they end up with their title deed.
What's a serviced stand?
So typically when we talk in development, we're going to get when we speak and we start, we will start off with what we call raw land, which might be a farm, might be a piece of land. That would be the first thing. Mm-hmm. When that opportunity comes to develop, that land might be with a particular landowner. A developer may acquire that land, or he may enter into a JV with the landowner. And in terms of that JV agreement, they agree in terms of how they will share the fruits of the project, which is to develop service stands.
Okay.
Right? Once that agreement has been sorted out, a concept of the land is developed. So that's what we're calling raw land. Ultimately, what then needs to happen is a process of development needs to take place. It would start then with developing the concept of the product that we want to develop. Is it a gated community? What is the layout of this concept? What schools will be there? What is the type of finished product we want to develop? Mm-hmm. That's dealt with. From there, the necessary applications are done to procure the permit for that piece of land. And that submission is made either to council or to the appropriate rural authority in terms of RDCs. The permit is then granted to the developer. It's at that point in time that the developer's now got his permit that he can actually now begin to take that project to market. It also will depend on the particular financial model the developer has come up with. Most of the developers, they at that point in time will then commence the process of doing all the upstream services. There's engineering work that needs to be done. Engineering drawings need to be done for the project in terms of all the roads that we need to do. Surveys need to be done on the project. These are all upfront things that need to be done, even the permit application. And thereafter, the permit having been granted, we can then take those stands to market for off-plan sales. And while those sales are going on, to finance the project as well, the developer has put in his investment into the project. The roads need to be put. That's part of the work now of creating what we call the finished service stand. The permit itself will actually give you the conditions that need to be fulfilled on that piece of land in terms of the sewer that needs to be put in, the roads that need to be put in, the lighting, the water connections, electricity, it's all defined within that permit. And the objective of the developer to end up with what we call service stands is to fulfill the conditions of that permit.
Oh, so it might not mean everything.
Yes.
Based on my permit, I could say, I'm just putting roads.
In terms of the application you've
That
applied
just
to.
okay.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fully serviced has roads.
Water.
Water
Okay, so let's take a typical stand. There's roads. You need a road network to access and get to your stand. That's one. Two, if we need to put in, if there's water drainage that's passing through the area, you need to be able to access your stand. Two, water needs to come to your stand. So there needs to be the infrastructure for water, either from your council being able to connect to water mains or from whatever your water source is. Three, sewer. What are we talking about sewer? We need the sewer connections and the sewer system as well. That's what we're talking about. And then also the street power as well. That's a plan in terms of how would we connect to ZESA, the power provider. That infrastructure needs to be built. So all these plans need to come in based on where that piece of land and the utilities available in the area. You might find that the developer has to connect a pipeline to connect to sewer works to council, or the developer is putting in a biodigester system, which is quite common practice now, to process the sewer within a particular area within the estate. So these are all, it's a holistic consideration that needs to be made. And even based on the size of the development, you'll find there'll be conditions to build schools. Because if we're building a community of maybe 1,000 residents, where are the kids going to go to school? Where's the daycare? And this is all part of the planning and the concept for the development. So to come back to your question, when we talk of a service stand again, it's ensuring that all these utilities have been provided for that stand. And the final stage then, when a buyer is now taking possession of their land, is that they can now come in and build their house with everything in place for them.
Based on what you applied for.
Correct. So the permit is key in prescribing that. Because you could apply for just a basic development or more upper market and higher level development. It's all governed by the permit in terms of the final product you want to bring to market and you're offering to the public.
Tafazwa, what I often find gets misunderstood or misaligned is the role of a developer and a contractor, right? A developer is the entrepreneur who spotted the opportunity, this ground coming in at this price, this cost of servicing, I sell at this price. Those two, there's a profit in between. The developer is looking to maximize that.
Yes.
The developer has the end-to-end responsibility to get the rights and then dispense the product at the end. In between that, he might use this guy for roads, that guy for sewer, that guy for whatever. So the contractor that you see is not the guy who's ultimately, he may be performing the service, but the responsibility is not with him. It's with the developer who has packaged the whole thing. He's the one who is taking the money and should be giving you the thing at the end.
He's the one who's given me the promise of what I should get, and he's the face of the project.
Correct. So that's also a very pertinent point, that you will get different types of developers with different capacities. There are some developers, my particular company involved as well, that it's an end-to-end process. The entire capacity is within us to develop the concept of the project and deliver the infrastructure works necessary. And also all the engineering and professional services necessary are all in-house. As Kura has alluded to, there are also entrepreneurs who are developers, because that's really what a developer is seeing this opportunity and this idea and transforming that into a tangible community at the end of the day. And exactly. And then, in that case, they may not have the personal capacity or the resources. They'll then bring in and outsource different aspects of the development works. But the responsibility is still there to fulfill the conditions of the permit. Because only on fulfillment of the conditions of the permit can the clients get the promised title deeds.
So, what do I need to be able to start building on my stand?
Okay.
What is the process and the documentation that is required?
Okay, so as your development has gone on, let's say there's a client who's bought a particular stand in a development. For them to be able to start building, there's probably two critical things that need to happen. One, the developer needs to have obtained the necessary compliance for that particular area of stands, i.e. the developer needs to have fulfilled the developments, the conditions of the permit.
Okay.
That's one. Once they fulfill that, where then the developer is then able to support the process of that individual applying for their compliance of their stand.
How do I apply? What do I need to apply for my compliance?
So in terms of applying to, based on, let's take a typical scenario that we're dealing with council. The developer would have procured from council for the works that they've done certain recommendations. There'll be recommendations from the roads department that the roads have been fulfilled. 2, that the water and stormwater drainage has been done. 3, that the sewer has been done. Armed with those recommendations, there's also based the endowment for that particular stand will also need to have been paid, and the receipt must be attached to that application. Those documents are then submitted to council. Within a 3 to 4 week process, the individual stand compliance will then be issued by council, which then gives the buyer of that stand the right to occupy and move on to their stand. Simultaneous with that, the buyer would have been submitting their plans, their building plans to council. Once the building plan is approved at council and that individual stand compliance is on hand, construction can commence.
Can I just bring you back a little bit? Are we saying that you need full development compliance and individual compliance before you can start to build, and that's regulated by the council or by law or whatever?
Yeah, so typically in terms of how a project is structured, it will be structured in phases. So where we've maybe got 1,000 stands or we're working on a 70-hectare site, we might start with phase 1, which is 20 hectares that we're working on. And we complete those development works on that particular area. And yes, we then have to get those particular compliances in terms of the roads, water and sewer to be able to get the stand compliance. There may be what we call bulk infrastructure, which we will continue to develop on an ongoing basis, because it might not be practical that right at the onset we complete the massive biodigester, but we have solutions for that. So your development is done in phases. We get compliance for that particular area, obviously with the authority which is council, because after we've performed the necessary works on the project, council inspectors come and each department will inspect and see that the works are up to the standards and they sign off. Those are the individual compliances, and then the application goes in.
Okay, I mean, the strange thing is that there are so many communities which have been existing for 10, 15 years, which do not have compliance, but they are chock-a-block, well-established, all built up. It's sort of not, we're missing something. And I'm guessing there's partial compliance, maybe?
That begs the question, because, according to the regulations, yes, there can be partial compliance.
Yeah.
When we talk of things like partial compliance, we're saying that you fulfilled a certain amount of conditions which allow certain sections of the development. But ultimately, the question which allows the process to continue and allow people to build, but in terms of the primary requirement is fulfillment of those permit conditions.
But it might not be partial compliance, because he said based on the permit,
Yeah.
they may have said we're just doing the road.
Yeah.
We may not tar it, but we've created
Yes, but
waste.
title deeds are failing to come to be processed for these communities because they don't actually have compliance. So which means there's something wrong. There's a disconnect.
Sorry for butting in there.
Okay.
But that's exactly my point. That in order for you, I think in your previous episode, I saw in the legal episode, it was very clear that to get title deed or get title transfer for your subdivision, there are two key requirements: compliance certificate for that stand, which is basically certifying to the registrar that the conditions for development of this property have been fulfilled. That's the stand compliance. And then 2, the tax, the ZIMRA clearance, the capital gains clearance has been discharged. Those two issues then give the green light for the registrar to proceed with delivery of title deeds.
My young brother, the roads are full of cars. There are a number of us who have licenses. There are very many who don't have licenses, but they're on the road. So that's a terrible part in our behavior as people. We rush to buy unregistered land. We rush to pay unregistered developers. We rush to occupy and start building, and we're not doing the letter of the law to do as you would hope and as you dream. We're law-abiding citizens. If you're putting in the kind of 20, 50,000, 100,000 into a property, these DDs are what we need to do. Yes. And that's why we're doing this kind of a show.
Correct.
So if I buy into a permit that says you're just doing roads, to be able to get my title, I must now make sure my stand has water, sewer link or whatever. I have to ensure that as...
Well, the developer...
But I mean, the developer applied just to say, my permit, I will just do partial service.
If that's what the permit is, the requirement of the permit, then yes, that's exactly that.
Then I must do the rest.
No, well...
okay, let's put it in practice, right? So an agro plot, right, is a big piece of land, right?
Yeah.
A big piece of land is typically going to just do the roads.
Yes.
Because you have 2 hectares, 5 hectares, 10 hectares.
Yes.
Council's not going to say you must put a 15-meter road to your gate,
yes,
right? But if you've bought a subdivision and an agro plot, the subdivision permit says just put in the road.
Okay.
And thereafter, and it can be a gravel road.
Right.
Thereafter, if you want to drive it with tar, that's on you. If you are buying a 200 square meter stand in a development, trust me, the council will have said you must tar it, you must do 2 surfaces, you must do X, Y, and Z, and that's on the developer.
Okay, so you can't get a partial.
Yeah. So you're not going to get an urban area with dust roads.
Okay.
Yes,
But I know there are people who live in urban areas with dust roads because the developer, Anjenga, has not lived up to his obligations.
Yeah.
So to talk about people driving cars without licenses again.
But now you're going to have traffic cops on.
But does it mean that developers are just going around doing whatever they like without a regulating body? Because there's nothing sort of forcing the developers to ensure that nobody occupies until XYZ is being done.
The occupation side of it is actually, I think, a council side of it. So I think we really, in my view, are also seeing evolution within the development space. That there's a lot, when the land developers came on board, there were few and they did whatever they could.
Sure.
I think there's an evolution of that process now. Sure. It's becoming more scientific and the standard is lifting.
Sure.
But yes, to answer your question, it's probably... land development is not necessarily regulated at the moment.
Sure.
So
I'm not mandated to speak on anybody's behalf, but there are bodies, property developers' body that wants to form regulations and say these are the minimum standards, and then that body is having engagement with legislators to say here's the property development bill. This is what a developer does. This is how they get registered. These are the service level agreements that they must adhere to, so that John Cowboy can't pitch up and say, I'm a developer, and then runs away.
I think it's necessary because if you're going to regulate the transfer of the property, you're going to regulate how property is sold, and you don't regulate how it's created.
Sure.
And even worse, developers are allowed to sell outside of regulation. So if I'm selling your stands, I've actually got to follow professional standards and regulations, but you can, as a normal developer, do whatever you like. It creates quite a huge problem, don't you think?
Yeah.
yes, I think regulation definitely needs to take place. But even those developers that are selling, we're selling within the ambits of our development for a project that we are running. So that's where our interests are, and we're not going out to the general public from that viewpoint. So what it leaves us with in the market, we're going to get tiers of developers. And I think for the audience, then it's up to them. It's part of this due diligence that you need to make when you're engaging your developers and looking for land. Who is selling the land? What is their track record? What have they done? Go and see their projects, and develop your comfort from those areas, so that you try and at least de-risk that aspect of running into some of these dubious developers and so on.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's the responsibility of the developer to deliver that project, because that is the promise in terms of the agreement of sale that you've entered into with your customers.
So here's a question coming out of that. What happens if you don't? And starting off from what we were discussing now in terms of compliance and people starting to build before they actually have full compliance, who gets penalized? Is it the developer or is it the person who's building their house and is occupied?
It's the person who's building the house and is occupied. One, the developer will definitely not allow anyone just to come on board. In terms of our projects, it's a very clear process. For you to get access to your site and deliver building materials, you need to have got to a certain point. But if you force yourself onto a piece of land, there is recourse in terms of the law. And even council has not given you the permission. You cannot. So you then your building is then an unlicensed, unregulated structure and subject to demolition.
So here's the problem is that you are straight and narrow. Whereas I think when we go out there, we see all sorts of stuff.
Like cowboys.
We see the demolitions happening and we always ask, well, where was everybody when this happened?
Correct.
And it's sometimes in developments. So it's a concern. But I think one of the other concerns, again, is that when things don't happen, somebody else is being penalized. The developer still is scot-free. So yes, this regulation, I think, is something which might be necessary and probably best to do it yourselves. As you're saying, people are organizing themselves before the ministry starts to interfere.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And unfortunately in Zimbabwe, we've had the emergence of land barons who've gone on and gone on to people's land, sold land. And again, it's really the public who've been duped and felt the pain of all these schemes and shenanigans. And yes, so it's up to the industry, I think the more reputable developers, to set the bar. That's definitely what we've, as a developer, we've been very deliberate about is setting the bar in terms of property development. Because the other issue that takes place in markets is the issue of double sales and stuff like that. We ourselves as an entity have developed our own software that, whenever we're developing a particular area or a project, all the stands go in there. And once we sell a stand, boom, we automatically label it as sold. And what we're also doing is giving access to the stakeholders and any interested buyers to log into the portal and actually see which stands are available in a project. That way, if you're being sold a stand, you can actually go into the project and see, is a stand available for sale? If it's sold, you'll just see the person's initials. EN, or in my case, you'll see MD, sold to MD. So that's a measure. That's part of the steps. Because it can be problematic. You find people are buying a piece of land, and suddenly 3 people are saying, no, but I've got an agreement of sale. Yeah. But that's a scam again. That's a scheme to abuse the public.
I'm struggling with a concept. You said you buy a piece of land and you subdivide, and then you decide we're going to start with phase A to develop it.
Yes.
Would phase A then be compliant?
Yes.
So you'd be selling stands that are compliant and you declare that it's compliant. So I don't have to pay endowment.
No, hold on. Sorry, let me just take you back there. So when we envisage a development, we do the development in phases. Mm-hmm. So when we start selling, or when we embark on phase 1, we working towards compliance. And we actually label it as these will be off-plan sales, that we've not got the finished product yet. We're working towards the finished product. As we go down the project, we then begin to achieve the compliance for the different phases.
I think when you say off-plan, you're dealing with someone who's never bought. I've never bought a property. Off-plan, you're just saying you haven't built the structure.
Yes, we haven't completed the development of the stand yet.
That's to you. To me, you haven't built the structure. I'm thinking I'm buying a flat or whatever.
Yes.
Why do you not explain that it is not going to be compliant?
But I think it is. I'm not too sure.
Off-plan doesn't mean compliance to me, is what I'm saying.
Yes, okay, I agree. But when there's an engagement between the developer, the client, and the relevant sales team, and even the visit to site, because I don't think anyone's going to buy a stand and have not visited the site.
Wow.
Those issues come out.
Yeah.
I mean,
It happens.
That's definitely, these should be discussed, that no, this is the project timeline, this is where we're at. Because you might even get to a stage where when a project has just broken ground, you've come on the ground and you'll see the graders actually working on the road and the road's been cut. You'll see the work going on. So it's very clear that, look, this hasn't been achieved, but this is where we're going.
But
Sure.
it's clear to you.
Sure. Can I try and help you if I've got you right? Compliance is an outcome.
Yes.
It's a future-based thing, right?
Right.
So from here, council says, Kura, go and build 1,000 stands.
Okay.
But when you come back to us, for us to say, sharp, you've done it, we want to see da.
Yes.
So I can't ask for it and do it on the same day. So I
Right.
start now and I say, can you give me permission to do this thing in 1,000 stands? 1,000 stands, I might sell 10 a day, I might sell 100 a day.
Right.
It might take me 10 years.
Right.
Till I've done all of that, then I've put in all of the services because I'm generating the money
Yes.
out of that. Then I'm going to come back to council and say, ndapedza
Yes.
chikamu changu.
Yes.
And that might be the phases, 200 stands at a time. Then compliance is issued. So
Right.
compliance can't be the day I've applied for it. I've got to perform to get
Right.
to compliance.
Which I understand. And I'm saying, as the developer, you're not taking into consideration the person who's buying, that they're not in your industry. They don't understand that because they're graders and all of that,
Yeah.
I don't know that it's not compliant.
No,
I'm just like, oh no, at least this is a serious developer. He's
But
actually
it's
Yes.
natural.
Yeah.
They're incentivized to promote themselves.
Yes.
This is why real estate agents should be doing the selling.
Yeah.
But you know, an interesting thing to do with off-plan sales. In the Town and Country Act, you're not allowed to sell any land in Zimbabwe before it's got a subdivision permit.
Right.
So
Yes,
unfortunately, some people will do off-plan sales before
in the
that.
process of
Just,
subdividing.
we've got an idea. I've got an idea. Listen, give me your money. That's happening all the time. And I mean, I'll be honest, I only learned that about 6 months ago.
Yeah, and reinforced by a recent court case that said you can't describe an undescribed piece of land because the definition of it is a subdivision permit giving point A, B, C, D. And if until that birth certificate is out, you can't say,
not selling anything."
we're selling that.
Correct,
Ooh,
correct.
nemaziso wangu between apple and apple doesn't
Yeah.
exist yet.
So remember, developers are in it for the profit. They are incentivized to get cheap finance. So an unscrupulous developer will just say, I've got my plans, it looks official,
Yeah.
let me get a grader, let me cut some roads, let me start selling. And it happens. I mean, go online and if you look up, especially Norton, you'll just see a drone shot of roads that have been cut. You know, is that subdivision permit out?
But I don't know that. Do you see what I'm
That's
saying?
why we're doing the show.
That's
Yes.
what I'm saying.
Exactly.
But
Due
I'm doing
diligence.
the show
Due
Yes.
diligence.
to say, as a developer, you're not being fair to the average person. If you don't
Some developers,
explain,
let's be
yes,
fair.
Yes.
yes.
Th-
But I'll
this
just
is-
put them all there to say, even if you're not blatantly saying it, at least explain to the people to say, you're buying this, it will be yours. This is the process, and to get to the point of title,
This needs
you'll
to
need to pay this, which is based on my compliance, which I will get in such. If it's a lovely area, you won't lose
Yeah.
a buyer. Why not
Yeah.
just be open and say, hey, you paid full price, but
It's cheap
you can't
finance.
do anything.
Yeah.
I get
So-
it. That's why I said a developer's focused on the financial side versus
The client service.
Yeah.
But not all developers, because
Not all, yeah.
I mean, it's very typical that even when we engage clients in our market space and most developers, the first thing clients will ask you, when will I be able to build? And we're very clear that, look, in terms of the project development and the phase we're working on, we anticipate we will deliver compliance by this date. And once we've, like I alluded to, once we've achieved council compliance and that's happened, you can get on site. So nobody will, when we're selling, we're not saying you'll start building tomorrow because compliance is not there. So it's very clear. But I agree with you, the market has been tainted by some of these practice. There's Zimbabweans have really struggled. They've had a painful experience. We've seen that, we've encountered those clients.
it is sad. And I say it because I have a lot of clients that call And their experiences where they'll be like, I'm scared because I gave money and I thought I could build. They hadn't done, like you're saying, the subdivision permit. And someone's saying, I was looking to move in at least within 9 to 12 months, but it's been 2 years, nothing's been done.
Yeah.
So you feel for them, which is why I'm saying,
Yeah.
That breaks my heart.
It does.
That's why I do consumer advocacy. That's why on every forum, protect yourself. That's why you're giving us the platform to
Yeah.
protect yourself. The best defense of your money is your interest. And your interest is going to be driven by your knowledge. So keep watching podcasts, keep researching, talk to somebody who's in the game, be an agent, be your lawyer, be a chamari wako who's done this a couple of times. Get a better knowledge than believing and ngofamba ne emotion. Hey, the one of my stands like cheaper. The guy says, and he gives you a receipt. Hey guys, cooperatives have been selling, developers have been selling, land barons have been selling. This is a highly regulated industry. Do the checks. Check with people that are not directly involved in the selling. Surveyor General, Deeds Office, lawyers. They're the people who are going to show you objective documentation. So it's not by face, it's not off Facebook Marketplace, it's not a developer, Pasipimuti Enterprises. There must be people of substance because you're paying huge monies.
So
and
the
the
thing
most
is,
accessible people are estate agents. And I'm going
Yeah.
to come for you guys.
yes, please do.
Because I will phone an estate agent and say, look, please help me. I'm looking for a development or whatever. Or, something to buy. I've discovered there's the registered estate agent and then you have sales consultants.
No.
Correct?
No. Then you've got bogus agents.
Well, within your organization, I don't have to be registered.
Oh, I
correct?
hear you. That's correct. That's
I
correct.
can walk in, I could leave the bank today and I could say I want to go and be an agent. I want to work for a real estate company, correct?
That's correct.
What qualification do I need?
So you go through, you actually have 2 routes. You can go through a negotiator's onboarding process and exams and all of that there. So you actually get trained on that. That's the entry level. And then you can go for the 3-year course. Well, I think it's 3 years anyway.
It is 3 years.
Obviously, I don't have it since I don't know. But that makes you a principal registered estate agent, which is
Right.
what you're referring to.
Right.
Which I am not.
Okay. You're just a negotiator.
I'm just a well, I'm not just a negotiator.
Sorry.
I'm a good negotiator.
My apologies.
Yes.
Okay. Within your group of negotiators, there's some who aren't as knowledgeable, correct?
Yes.
And you're exposing people to those people, correct?
Yes, that's fair.
And so information isn't as correct or as
No.
accurate.
People are
Because
being
you'll find-
trained.
Yeah.
So you can have somebody who's completely trained and qualified who's incompetent. Similarly, you can have somebody who's been trained and not yet without enough experience, but they're competent more than that person. So it's not
Right.
about that. You need to look at that agency's credibility, its training systems. You can always ask. People are free to ask and understand what is the track record of this organization.
The
So
organization and the person I deal with, two different things.
no,
But you're going to
it's
always
not.
hold the
It is.
organization liable.
Because
Yeah.
I'm not, and I say this because I've dealt with agents. And the clients come and the agents are asking questions and I'm like, but do you know what you're actually asking? I'm not trying to say what they're asking, but you see that this person, it's just surface. And you end up saying, for the client, you're supposed to ask this. And so you're the face of, you're the most accessible. As much as you're talking about regulation in other areas, I think that's something that's feedback that you should take back to say, within our organization or within the various organizations, are your people competent enough to ask the questions? For people
So-
who pick up a phone and say, I'm trusting an
certainly,
agent.
you'll find, for example, where I work, people undergo a process of mentorship. So somebody new coming into the organization, they're going to go through the EAC courses. They're going to go through training every week, but they've actually got a mentor on top of them. Everything they do is reported back. It's sanctioned. It's supported. If it means walking through the door together, showing them how to show a house, doing all of that there, I've got three mentees, for example. So I think it comes down to process. However, I think it also comes down to do what makes sense. Somebody looks at a long-established organization and thinks, they're probably going to be expensive. The price is the same. Or they'll look at their cousin who does that, and they'll go for their cousin. Your decision when you're making such important purchases shouldn't be about who you like, who you think you can relate to more. Look at who do you think is the best in this industry, who can protect my interests. You're incentivized. You're supposed to be incentivized to save yourself. That's why big companies outside of our industry, have got ISO ratings and so forth. Because it's easy to then say, I want to work with this company because they've been qualified by somebody 2-3 times over.
It's really important.
So here's a gap that falls in the market. Brian is a EAC accredited negotiator with an EAC licensed company, right? Protected, right? If not that he would do it, if Brian stole my money, I could then say I have a claim because a fairly employed representative of this company stole my money.
Right.
I gave him money in good faith, and then there's a fidelity fund certificate or a compensation certificate gets paid. Developers, when they're selling their product, I repeat, developers selling their product, they can have a sales team. And that sales team doesn't speak to his sales team. And it does not have the legislative protection. So Brian's niece, I'm not saying he's done that, Brian's niece can come and sell stands within, I'm calling him Brian, within Max's development. And they don't have the registrations and the legal fallback that Brian's team has. So there's a gap in the law. And then that is where you get a lot of inexperienced people. Some are fantastic. Some really incredible people have come out of that space. But then there's some who are just zamazamas. And it's a hard game. Selling stands is not easy. Some people want to give up. Some people want to take shortcuts. Some people want to misrepresent. The training that a proper agent is going to do has the legalities of offer and acceptance, the legalities of what is in a contract, what should be there, what shouldn't be there. And if we don't uphold those standards, the whole industry and all of the work that developers do gets tainted, because that face, that person that on a WhatsApp, on a Facebook marketplace, can be sitting under a tree in, I won't say Lotito, because Lotito gets well abused.
What you just said.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to developments. Please explain the concept of approved plans and why they're suggested by the developer for certain developments.
Yes. So typically, the idea is that we go back to the beginning in terms of the type of product we want to create. And the community we want to create and what we've sold to the market. So to preserve the value of a particular development, preserve the value of the buyers, we then come up with a minimum standard of plans or buildings that need to be put up in that particular estate. And we avoid the scenario where we have yourself next door, you've built a very nice house up to a good standard with a good value, and your neighbor comes in and just build something shabby. That will impact the values of that estate. So the mechanism through which this is managed is that that particular development has a homeowners association, and a constitution is developed, formulated, adopted, and through that mechanism we develop approved plans and the minimum standards for that estate to preserve the value of it. Just like anywhere else in the world, go into SA, you'll see a certain standard. You drive in communities. You can't just drive into the gate. A resident needs to invite you in, give you a code. In one particular estate I used to live in, all the houses were the same, maybe slightly bigger, but boom, there was the standard. So that's the background to that. So in fact, we then say it's the residents or the owners of that land themselves electing their standard, because ultimately they will elect the office bearers to the homeowners association to implement the rules that they want for their estate and also to preserve the investments they've made.
Can you enforce that legally?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if I build my house and I don't follow the format, what happens then?
Well, in this particular case, we're saying it's through the homeowners association, and you've signed up to that. To say that, look, I'm abiding by the rules and regulations of this estate.
Have there been any instances of someone being sued or?
Typically, not that I know of in Zimbabwe or in any particular experience that I have, but also it's then in your interest as well. It's in your own personal interest as well to preserve the value that you are putting into that same estate, to ensure that if you invest 70, 80,000 into a property, you want that value to appreciate.
I like where he's coming from. I do understand where
Yeah.
Tafadzo was coming from. Council has a duty to say, is there a floor? Are there walls? Is the roof okay?
Correct.
Right? So they can approve
A minimum.
a pink building that's a triangle if
Yes.
it meets requirements.
Correct.
Our lovely estate, Tafadzwe Estates, we're trying to create a certain aesthetic. We want this feel, Tuscan, Roman, Dutch, Spanish. We can describe all of that. So if I've sold you the picture that we're going to do 1,000 stands in this flavor, when at law, theoretically, you could have gone to council and get any a plan that you wanted approved. We as homeowners, to protect our standard, and you've bought in, we have said, these are the pre-approved designs. That it can also work out cheaper. I've seen developments where guys, when they sell you a stand, they'll say, we can even build the slab for you, which is nudging you in a certain direction. But then over and above that, they are planned so that when you're not going out to get a new architect to design something new, you said, look, we've spoken to council, these meet muster and what they're expecting. For $400, Bob's your uncle, off you go. So it's a win-win, but it's really trying to not create homogeneity, but a reliable expectation in this area to know that this standard, this quality, and this direction. So when you're in there, that can feel, my architects, why not you believe is, you want to feel, I'm in with the ballers. My house is not 13 times better than Brian's house, although mine will be twice as big as his because
but he'll make it bigger.
You check. But there's a standard to it and a rhythm to it.
So if I could just come in there quickly with Kura, even in where there's approved plans, it's not always been rigid to say these are the only ones you can build.
Yeah.
There's been scope for modification,
Sure.
even to submit something just to ensure that the standard is there. So you've been able to modify. These are the plans. I know I'd like to modify it ABC because it doesn't suit me. Once that modification is approved within the homeowner's structure, it's been allowed to fly.
So at what point as a developer do you share your homeowners association and your approved plans? At what point of your sales process?
That has to be right up front at the beginning. That has to be. That's the only way. Otherwise, we then have a scenario whereby certain buyers may come in before these things are on the ground.
Yeah.
So they have to be done up front.
Okay.
It has to be done
You
up
share
front.
that.
We should have said this with in the legal episode.
Yeah.
The term consensus addendum. Those guys want to use big English.
Yes.
It is the picture in my mind, is the picture in your mind, and the agreement between us is it's a 400 square meter stand with 200 square meters of building built of brick with a double gable and concrete tiles on the roof and solar panels to cover this amount of ground. You may be allowed to put in a pool or not. Those are the rules. Do I know it? Do you know it? Do I know what I'm buying? Yes. Do you know what you're selling? Yes. Does the agreement tie us to say Tabumirana? That's why we are pending signatures.
Right. Okay.
So it's right up
From
front.
the start.
So the problem is we've got secondary sales. So this is fine. You're straight and narrow. You're upfront. You want to be transparent. I've bought a stand. I bought it early when you were selling at $34 per square meter. Now it's at $120 per square meter. I love your estate, by the way. And I now feel I just want to sell that stand. Again, a seller is incentivized to get out of their position quickly.
Yes.
And is there anything that will mandate a seller to pass on this information? Or you get through the gated community, through the gates, you see the stand here, deal done, out. Because again, we don't have consensus.
Yes, no, I think it's always our recommendation, and even to the investing public, always, if you're not, because in this case, what document are you getting?
Title deed.
No, but the title deed is not yet out.
Yeah.
If it's a project under development, this stand doesn't have compliance, title deed is not yet out. At that point, you have to defer back to the developer.
Yeah, but let's move forward. Let's say,
It's done.
It's done now, title deeds are out.
I think in such a case, we should, probably for the legal episode, to ensure that will these title deeds talk to a homeowners association? because this should be part of your process now, that when you're buying into a property, you're also getting the rules and regulations of the homeowners association. But as to what governs you to be able to alert you to that, I'm not sure if it will be actually endorsed on the title deed that the homeowners association.
I guess if you buy into communal land, when
Yes.
you get your title deed and you buy into communal land, at that point you're getting a benefit, which means you have to see a document.
Yes.
Which means you're tied in. Maybe that would be.
Yes. So that would be the point, that you're negotiating this transaction, you're taking over this particular stand, the title deed is there, and you're getting all the terms and conditions that come with that. I know we did some transactions, and right at the beginning we got all those things. This is the constitution of the homeowners. This is how it's structured. These are the levies payable. This is how it works right up front.
Yeah.
But would you have levies for the levies come what after the development's
Well,
completed?
yes. In terms of this scenario, we're talking
completed one.
there is compliance, and we're ready at that stage. Yeah.
And when I'm buying, sorry, Kura,
No problem.
when I'm buying a stand and I'm paying over some months,
Yes.
at what point do I join the homeowners association?
So typically we've said when your stand has got compliance.
Okay.
Yes, because it's also based on the size of the community. You know, how far is the development? If we take a particular example we're familiar with, there is now a sizable community that's now resident on the estate.
Yes.
So at that point, it's now practical to start forming the homeowners association and for them to start taking responsibility. From the onset, the developer assumes the role of the homeowners association to kick things off until the independently elected homeowners can be constituted.
Life is easier on the southern side of the Limpopo. There are rules. That homeowners association or body corporate is a legally mandated body from day zero, right? There's never going to be, so in Zim, you get development happening and then transfer happens and then you start paying levies. So
Right.
it will for a year or 2 years or 3 years, you haven't been paying levies and then this bill comes.
Yes.
Human beings, we don't like that.
No.
But I've had this thing, and then Ningi also hasn't finished paying, so why am I paying? But this guy, it becomes a mess. The best thing is to go to the highest principles from day zero. My guy, we need to do X, Y, and Z. Create a trust account, put the money somewhere so that somebody, as soon as he signed that agreement of sale, he must know every month there's $50 that I need to pay. It might go and sit in a trust account that people can watch and monitor. We love devolution and sharing responsibilities. Do that with competent people, but watch over it. Otherwise, these things, humans, we don't like paying upfront for maintenance or creating a savings fund to do something later. We get there, then there's a crisis. When we did this development, water was readily available and we had one borehole. But now because there are 10,000 stands there, we now need 3 boreholes. Where does that capital come from? You got to go to the community. Then all of a sudden you're contributing to something that you never saw. And it becomes quite uncomfortable. The developers have the role to make sure that for the harmonious enjoyment of everybody's asset and purposes, but there's a cost to that. And being the policeman, having been the charming guy selling the stand, to be the policeman and force people to pay, panenya.
So, okay, so you were saying south of the Limpopo, a developer will let people know the costs
Yes.
up front.
Yes,
And they start they start paying toward.
correct.
Is that something you could?
Well, you see, when we look from a practicality viewpoint, what are we paying for? And typically, your cost as residents of an association or tenancy in an estate is to maintain certain costs within there. Whilst we're in a development phase, there are a lot of costs. I mean, I'm talking from our particular experience that as a developer we carry. We've carried it for until we get to a certain point.
That's a choice.
Well, I think that's, to me, it's also a practical thing. Because if we've got a guy we're still servicing stands, you're paying for your stands, what are we charging you for? there's certain infrastructure that we need to build. We in terms of our plans, and we've been selling, we've said we're going to sink maybe 8 or 7 boreholes in the estate to augment the water supply. That's part of our plan. We can't start passing that on to you. But what are the maintenance costs we're talking about down the line are a fund for your roads, for your security, for the estate, and other aspects that we may want to maintain. So it's one of those things. It's based on the size of the community. In a cluster unit whole structure where we may have 10 units, it may be very clear what needs to be done. But in a bigger estate, it's one of those things that will be structured based on where the project is and how many residents are on site and building.
But do you communicate with the residents? Because you decided the type of wall.
Yes.
You decided the type of security at the gate. You've determined how many boreholes, right? When you hand it over to the homeowners association, you can't just say, okay, guys, well, we're done. Every month you're going to be paying $150. I don't think that is fair.
Yes.
I think as you're working on whatever you're working, it's letting people know that, please note, we've done this. This will be the cost every month for this, so that I'm not hit with a
sudden
thank you so
shock.
much. I would say, why did we need 8 boreholes? I could have sunk my own. Do you get what
no,
I'm saying?
I get it. And I think probably a more proactive exercise is necessary, that, before we have the duly constituted homeowners association, we should already have a representation
Yes.
of the homeowners
Yes.
to create a vehicle for
Yes.
communication with the community that's coming into the estate and that's investing into the estate.
Bruh, have you been in these homeowner association WhatsApp groups?
I know. Yes.
Savage.
Well, I know. I've heard of it. Fortunately, I'm not in one particular one, but I've heard of it.
You must be. There should be a TV show on that.
Yeah. And you know what we had to appeal to is say, look, at the end of the day, we all want to achieve the same thing. We're not out to assassinate anyone or bring anyone down. But let's come together and consult and work out solutions. But yes, we know some of the residents may have pains, may be carrying burdens. Let's solve them together as a community, because that's what we solve them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's a new concept to Zimbabweans.
Yes.
Not everybody knows what a gated community is. My assumption would be, I walk in, I build my house, I'm paying rates. Then someone wakes up and says, here's your monthly bill for what?
I've mentioned it before. Kuchenge Tedza, you said means maintenance. I'm not yet sure. We need to really identify an African word for maintenance, because once we get that culture, people should understand.
But it's education. It can't be my culture if you don't teach me and make me understand that that lawn on that main road has to be cut.
Whose job is that?
The owners.
No,
But I don't
no.
know that.
I think we're
Aesthetics of
talking
the
about
model.
education coming up from primary. You and I were done. It's too late for us.
Thanks.
We're coming from primary school and starting to teach children about maintenance so that they grow up in a culture
Yes.
of that.
Yes, and I'm saying worse off in a gated community, because if I have my own home, I'm just looking after my space and I know it's just rates, right? There may be, we decide on our road that we're going to put a boom, but it's a decision that we make. I'm not paying $200 for that. But in a gated community, someone doesn't
Wait a second, why aren't you paying
understand that.
$200?
It can't be $200 for that. Do you
That's-
get what I'm
that's
saying?
the problem.
You're part of the
Well,
problem.
Wait, no.
If you want guards with guns and electronic access, it's going to cost
Yes,
$200.
but that's a discussion that I'm saying we have, that we're sitting and saying, okay, we've chosen this person as the owners of the, of this lane. We've chosen the person, we've agreed on the fee, that's fine. But with a gated community, you're walking in on costs that someone has predetermined, because I could be phase 4. Phase 1 and 2 decided, this is how we're doing the security, this is how the maintenance, the lawn, this is the fee. I'm coming in and I'm paying $340 a month.
But
So it's stuff
It's
that
like
I'm
the
saying
law.
is-
You
have
are
to
responsible
be
to
taught.
know the law. Ignorance is not a defense.
Yes, but I'm saying that information should be shared.
No, you
Be
should
taught.
extract.
No, but
You
that's
should
what I'm
ask the
saying.
question.
I
It's
never
a
grew up
gated
in a gated
community.
community.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's tricky.
your
So
point
let's turn
is-
it around.
Right.
So should we make it as easy for you when we know the costs are $300 and you want to pay $30? Should we say that's okay?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying because it's a new concept to most of us, who don't live in a gated community, we're getting into, let people know that with the plans, the approved plans with the homeowners association, there is a levy that you're going to pay.
Yes.
There I will know what I'm getting into. But for now, what's happening is people aren't told the levy because no one knows what the levy will be, which is fair. But let people know that there will be a levy.
Well, look, sales and marketing is very tricky. Unfortunately, because you don't want to scare away the
But then
prospect.
you leave me with the problem of my
it's not
neighbor
fair.
saying I'll pay $30.
I'm not saying it's right, but I'm trying to understand from the developer's perspective. They don't have an obligation.
Yeah. What I need, just off the top of my head, I'm sure this should be covered within the constitution of the homeowners association.
Yeah.
But I can't recall specific paragraphs now. So that already should be within that document that talks to what's required, how it will run, and the fees that will be need to pay. But I agree, it's a matter of emphasis, and even the subsequent fee that emerges should be based on a defensible calculation.
It's not a democracy, guys.
You know, there should be a calculation that proves it.
Dude, in
I
a
agree.
family meeting, just to buy flowers at so and so's graduation, muchaitisana naro to
Yeah.
the last.
I know.
Yeah.
But flowers are not necessary. Dilema flowers, mumamangu, do not tema garden.
Yeah.
So to think at scale, right?
Yeah.
If you know what it takes, you know what it takes
Yeah,
to
I
run
know.
an estate. To have those nice vehicles branded and armed access and power,
No, it's
so
going
that
to
we
cost,
know
I
that
agree.
guys want stuff for free, and we think that a private sector entity must act like the government. It's the
No, it's not
municipality.
gonna happen.
It's
It's-
not.
it's
It's
back-
expensive.
It's back to the standards and stuff we wanna. I mean, I recall one of my experiences in our first gated community. We moved in. It was a cluster development. We couldn't put everything in the house in day one. We left stuff on the lawn and we locked the gate and went to work. The next day we got a letter. One, you don't lock the gate. We need access anytime for the guys to come in. And two, pack all your stuff, otherwise we're fining you. So the next day we had to do it.
Is that locally?
Yes. No,
Oh,
no,
well
this
done.
was, no, it was in SA.
Oh.
But that was our first bite of it. And in the morning, the guy just comes, he comes in your yard, he cuts the lawn, he closes the gate, and he goes to the next one. So, you know, and the
that would be-
facilities you want to enjoy.
That would be lovely. I'd like to know, though, this issue of these developments which are phased and ongoing.
Yes.
Somebody buys some land and they want to get to a point, a definable point where it's no longer a construction site. Are there rules in developments where you say, by such and such, if you buy a stand, by such and such time, it's got to be built?
Yeah. I need to I'll come back on that one in particular, because where development is ongoing, and there again, we would defer to the Constitution. Because we then have a scenario where phase one comes out first, that's going, we then get to phase two, we're still developing and construction is going on. So these matters would be defined again within the hierarchy of the homeowners association. And then what measures do we take to get you to get on with your building project? It's back to, remember, I think I saw in your last legal program, real rights and personal rights. Those issues begin to kick in.
Tafadzwa, you represent the new Zimbabwe. You represent the new buyers.
Right.
In our heads, we have Ndepangu, Ndapatenga, Panapa, it's my deed, Musha
Do what I
wangu,
want.
Ndoita Zantinoda.
Yes.
Please, Hlisa moyo. Calm down.
Communities.
It's community.
Yeah.
It is my rights. It must not impinge. It must not. My enjoyment can't be at your expense. My harmonious environment.
Yes.
So I want to chill out and do my podcasting and what have you from home. Your doof music, even if it's praising the Lord, is impinging on my rights. We now need to have ourselves as communal beings. I live with other people and takugarisana zvakanaka. So those rules are supposed to be objective and set between us up front so that we know ndomtemo wepanapa, not subjective, make it work backwards and
Right.
depango and I can do anything. Yes, you have absolute title to the land, but you have to relate to a community that's around you.
That's critical.
It's a partnership.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think it's understanding that, like you said, my mentality is mine. I do what I want. I can kill a cow if I want in my yard. But we need to also have someone to educate us and say, actually, it's not. And I think that's the gap.
Let's say within the community.
Looking at the people I've spoken to, the people I deal with, the people who have bought their properties, bought into a community, it's just lack of information. And as complicated as the documents may be, we may have to just simplify it. Find a simpler way to explain to people. Because like you said, the homeowners group, you're now fighting and say, who told you we must use the security company? Who told you that we should have cars? Why can't they be on bicycles?
I run a security company.
Do you see? Why you didn't ask me? And then it's why are you using his security car? It's just understanding, because we're not used to it.
Yeah. So as you said, in a democracy, not all of us. That's why we elect a president to run the country. Similarly, in our owners association, we will elect a management team, and we are vesting with him the power to make decisions and report back to us. That's one of it. But your point is taken on board, that I think as developers, let's begin to develop programs and just be more deliberate about informing buyers about these concepts. I'm even thinking of what does living in a community mean type of video, and just getting it out there and getting it to your customers. Because as you rightfully point out, this is a new experience. And I think a big problem I see right now is the concept of a gated community is well abused, because everyone is talking of a gated community, but it's not. You know, a gated community there is controlled access. Now, where people can just drive in and out of your development or estate is not a gated community. What is gated? Or there aren't a full 100% perimeter. But everyone, gated, it's just a buzzword. That again is abusing the market.
Even simple things as, can I have a dog?
Yeah.
That's something that's put in the homeowners association.
Correct.
Hey.
In terms of how pets are regulated and how you manage your pets and control them. Because pets can become a nuisance for your neighbor.
Yes.
And even in one community I knew of, you weren't allowed certain breeds because they were too dangerous for kids and stuff like that.
I salute you in the bank for putting this kind of information out there. When people buy, they got to know, they got to feel and touch, and the frustrations are real.
They are. I hope you've taken in what we've shared.
Yes, no, definitely. I'll
on
make
the sales side, we struggle.
Yes.
You know, we need your help.
No, definitely. I think I'll also be looking forward to viewing these podcasts and sharing them with the team so that we can respond. Because at the end of the day, our role as developer is to respond to the market and deliver what we've promised.
Yeah.
You know?
I think in your eyes, you guys are doing the right thing. And after the discussion, I can see where the mismatch is, because you're saying we followed these steps. And then I'm saying you did not tell me the steps.
No.
So I think where I thought you guys were wrong, you're not that wrong. It's just a way of marketing and communicating. And thank you so much. I think you're doing great in terms of making opportunities for people to buy and own a home.
Yes.
There were very few opportunities.
Are you speaking to him personally, or are you speaking to the industry? Because it sounds like
Speaking to him.
I think you said he was the representative.
Oh, he's a representative of.
Then he can go and tell them that BancABC thanks them.
All right.
Yeah, as the developers, you know, it's nice to see that I can own a home in a nice neighborhood, in a nice area, but again, just educate us more.
Yes, I agree with you. We're trying. We need to improve. The bar needs to be lifted. I think regulation will support that. We really need to protect the interests of the investing public. That's paramount.
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much for coming through. This has been enlightening. I think there's a lot to buying a house.
Definitely.
A lot to building. We
Yes.
didn't even cover that as to who you should have along the way with regards to building. But thank you so much. We wish you well in the industry. And we hope, again, everyone's learned something, taken away something, improving something in what they're doing. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This is Tafadzo from BancABC. Keep watching. Keep banking with us. BancABC, fresh thinking, smart banking.